Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my co-host, Peter Baracchini. Just the two of us on this week. Dayton's enjoying a vacation, well deserved, after all the work that he's done. I think we all need a vacation, I think.
Oh
But
yeah. Kind of had a mini one myself, but
yeah, well, I mean, we didn't record last week, but
mhm.
to kind of take a breath from the draft, we're going to dive right back in. Peter, how's it going?
It's going great. Yeah. Last week was a little bit of a breather after the draft. Obviously, I was dealing with some minor ailments when I came back. I was dealing with a massive headache, but here I am now and ready to talk prospects draft once again.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a week or so, I guess, since the draft, and we did do a bunch of shows around it. So we did our reaction. But Peter, before we get going to what we're going to do on this episode, since you weren't part of that reaction video, want your just your thoughts of your experience at the draft because you were there at the
Mhm.
Sphere, and I mean, on TV it was just a spectacle. How was it actually being there?
Yeah, if you got the sense that it was a spectacle on TV, it was basically a spectacle right in person as well. I mean, taking in the atmosphere on the floor and even in the stands as well, you could tell everybody was hyped over just the venue itself and how big it was, how interactive and how great the graphics were on screen. It was absolutely phenomenal how they were able to use this venue and use it to its full potential. Even on the outside too, like you saw on TV when the selection is made on the outside, just like what's happening on the inside. So planning that in Vegas was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, seeing all the fans, the families there. I recall, seeing family members walk around as well in t-shirts and everything like that to support the player getting drafted and all that. It was absolutely phenomenal. But even just meeting up with like a lot of people I talk with online that I don't get that we get that opportunity in person to just interact with them as well is always a great opportunity for that. Don't know what the future holds because it is going to be decentralized. Hopefully, media can still go in the future. I know teams may not, but definitely something I won't forget. If I didn't forget, the 2023 draft in Nashville, I'm not forgetting the one in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying, well, why don't they just do it there every year? I mean, just
I have
have,
no problem going again.
yeah, I mean, why not just do it in Vegas every year and have it just that? But yeah, there's going to be some changes, and we'll see how all that kind of plays out. But if this was the last one, I guess they go out with a bang.
No
It's the
better way
last
to
one
do
like
it.
that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good, and really good draft overall. I mean, a lot of some surprises in the first round. Nothing really major where we're like, oh my gosh, what happened? But I mean, Beckett Seneca going really early, but there was
Hmm.
talk of him going early, so it's not like it was way out of left field. We weren't expecting it. Um, so I mean, otherwise the draft was pretty good. But there was some surprising first round picks, and we did talk a little bit about it in our reaction. But Peter, what did you find as a surprise that you saw going in the first round?
Yeah, I think we kind of knew Seneca was going to be a top five pick, but top three was kind of a surprise. So we kind of figured going into the draft that Anaheim is going to throw like a massive, curveball, for the draft. And we kind of knew that Davidoff was going number two. But yeah, Seneca was definitely one of the big surprises there. Um, in terms of like later round picks as well, I thought Matte Gridden was kind of a bit of a reach for the Calgary Flames. A lot of uncertainty because he was in the USHL. Um, no, he wasn't in the USHL. Sorry. Thinking of a different prospect. I thought that because he was kind of viewed as maybe like a second or third rounder, taking him that high, but there's reasons why to suggest that he should be a first rounder because of the height advantage. The size, the physicality, and the energy that he brings is really great. Um, I'm completely losing it. He was in the USHL. Sorry, but I think maybe he was like maybe an early second. Again, thinking of different prospects. Sorry about this, folks. Um, 83 points in 60 games. I mean, definitely worthy of being a first round pick with that kind of production, but also the size that he brings. Really thought that maybe you could have had him in the early second round. And I think maybe there were a little bit more better options for Calgary, but I still think they had a phenomenal draft overall. And now there's the talk of him going to the QMJHL because his grades aren't good enough for college. So
Mhm.
not necessarily the direction that they had wanted him to go because a lot of teams are going that USHL collegiate route. That was trying hopefully going to work out for him. Unfortunately, it isn't. But I thought that was maybe one of those picks that kind of surprised me. But also, Ben Danford to the Maple Leafs.
Mhm.
Big shout out to Wes Clark, who just signed with or left with the Maple Leafs and signed with the Pittsburgh Penguins, who in his media scrum or media availability, he kind of like Easton Cowan, he was their guy all along. Like he was at the top of their list. And, he's already impressed at Maple Leafs camp. So that was a bit of a surprise right there because he could have still been have been had in the second round. Maple Leafs traded down, but they got the player that they wanted. I thought maybe I wouldn't have passed up on Stan Solberg or EJ
Yeah.
Emery at that point because you know how much I talked about them nonstop. But you got to love Ben Danford's game. He's still fearless. He's still relentless in the defensive zone. Plays with that edge and that intensity. Still got a right hand shot defender out of it, which is something that they needed. And I think that they came away very well with that pick, but still a bit of a surprise given where they were initially.
Yeah, I mean, I think we maybe expected the Maple Leafs to go off the board. It seems
Yeah.
like they've been doing it lately. And he does fit what it seems like Brad Treliving's trying to do, bringing in some more toughness and, and you said right hand shot. It's still a big thing. And they like the player and they get him. And that, I mean, that's usually, and like Easton Cowan's panned out. I think Danford probably will too. All right, biggest riser and faller. I mean, there were a few different guys that kind of rose. I mean, Seneca definitely did. Who did you see as a big riser and faller in the draft?
So I'm going to go with my follower first, and that's Igor Chernyshov. There is absolutely no way he should have fallen to the second
Yeah.
round, and that's just an absolute steal for the San Jose Sharks, where you had Macklin Celebrini with the first pick. You took Sam Dickinson, who fell out of that top 10, which I don't think he should have. And now you have another top six forward that fell to the second round that should have been a first rounder. I think that was a mistake on some teams, and San Jose literally took advantage of that. So that was a big surprise there, but a win for them anyways. Um, the other in terms of riser, Carter Yakimchuk, I really thought that picking him over Zane Parekh, I know both are offensive defensemen and both have their defensive deficiencies, but I feel a lot more confident with Zane Parex's game because he has at least shown improvement in the defensive game and being a little bit more intense. Again, still work in progress because there are still some of those lapses and times where he fades away and the intensity isn't as there. But I still question Yakimchuk's decision making. I think Parekh is maybe going to be in that next tier defender over Yakimchuk. But we'll see what happens. I still all this time I think a lot of people, including us on here, felt that Zane Parekh was probably the
Mhm.
ideal pick for the Ottawa Senators. Right shot. Yakimchuk is still a right shot as well, but I think that you get a little bit more of what you're getting with Parekh than you are with Yakimchuk at this point. So that to me was a little bit of a surprise there.
One thing about Yakimchuk is I really like his offensive game, and I've said this like
Absolutely.
you can teach the defense,
Hmm.
offense. It's either you either have that those instincts or you don't, and I think Yakimchuk definitely does. The thing is, I mean, decision making can of course be improved, and with coaching, with stuff like that, and with just maturity. I'm playing in the league. I think he may take a bit more time to make it to the NHL, while
Hmm.
Parak may be able to be in the league a lot sooner. Who knows? I mean, both picks. I mean, with those defensemen, really you can't go wrong where they went, and we'll see how each of them go as their development goes.
Hmm.
All right, let's talk about some draft classes. I mean, we all have our favorites, and when you look at the different draft classes overall, not just their first round picks, who was your favorite draft class overall of the 32 teams?
I have a few, actually quite a few. I'm really a big fan of what, Utah did. Getting TJ Gill and Cole Beaudoin, two different forwards with different play styles, but players that they needed up front. And we knew Tej was going to be in that top 6 or 7 range anyway, so somebody was going to take him, and I'm glad Utah did. Kobold went hard worker, kind of fits that, tall, physical being up
Mhm.
front as opposed to on defense right now because we know how much size they have on the back end. I thought that was a really good add up front. But Thomas Lavoie and VD Vicenen, I thought were good third round selections as well. Owen Allard was a good, late round pick to, give a chance on an overager. I thought Utah really did a really good job in that draft class, but we want to talk about like, finding talent in the later rounds. To me, I think an A or even close to an A plus goes to the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean,
Yeah.
Dominic Badinka and Nikita Artemanov. I know he's kind of fallen into the second round, but that's great value at the 50th overall. Badinka, I was high on him being a first rounder, but even after that, Noel Franson, Oscar Vuole, Justin Poirier, they're betting on a lot of upside with those picks, and we know that Carolina tends to go for those players that have those high upside that don't show it now, but the potential is very much there. And, we're seeing that with some of those picks. And I'm a big fan of some of those players that, probably should have been a little bit higher up. Or if I'm a team, I'm like, I got to take this guy right here. I would take Noel Franson
Yeah.
a little bit higher up. I had him as a second rounder, but you know what? Getting him in the third round, still good value. Oscar Vuole was one player that I was really high on in the second half. Great pickup right there. So, um, yeah, I think those are some of the two that really stood out for me in terms of like having a good draft. Obviously, the easy answer was going to be San Jose. I
Yeah.
mean,
Of
because
course.
they get an A plus anyways. But aside from San Jose, I think those are my other top two in terms of favorite drafts.
Mine's the Minnesota Wild. I mean, you're
Yeah,
looking at Zeev Boom, Ryder Ritchie, Aaron Kiriharyu way down in the fourth round. I mean,
yeah.
get even Sebastian Sony in the fifth round, a pretty good pick going down there. They just loaded up on pretty much defensemen. I mean, Ryder Ritchie's a forward, but Boom and Kiriharyu on a team that their prospect pool doesn't have a lot of defense. Now they're pretty loaded prospect wise and young player. I mean, Brock Faber and Zeke Boom. Oh my gosh. I mean, in the future, those two guys are just they're just gonna eat up the minutes and dominate on the back end. And getting Richie in the second round. I mean, we talked about him potentially being a first round pick.
Mhm.
Is pretty good at 45th overall. And then like Kivi Haru could have been was talked about as being a top 15 pick at one point, and he falls all the way down to the fourth round. I don't know if any of us I expected him to fall that far. I think it was maybe second round, but going down to the fourth, that was a pretty big surprise. Every time the rounds kept going, I'm like, Kibi Haru hasn't been picked. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But I
For
mean,
reasons we understand why,
yeah,
though.
we understand why. I mean,
Mhm.
injury problems and of course his size. I mean, he's an undersized defenseman. Um, but I mean, still think he's going to be a really good um, defender in the future, and the Wild are just going to benefit from it.
Worked out for Jared Spurgeon.
Yeah, right. I said that to Mariah right after the draft. I
Hmm.
said, well, he's not the same defenseman as Spurgeon because I think Spurgeon's a lot more physical,
Hmm.
and he blocks shots a lot more than Kiviharu, but you never know what Kiviharu will develop into, and we'll see. But they do have experience drafting undersized defensemen and then panning out. So I mean, Spurgeon's a lot older now since he was drafted. All right. So now let's go to the other side. Underwhelming. I mean, there were some teams that didn't have first round picks. I didn't have them, but overall, who'd you feel kind of I mean, it's hard to say because they obviously liked their picks. I mean, they're not thinking that they had a bad draft. But on the outside, who do you feel didn't have the strongest coming out of this one?
Uh, I mean, again, I really like New York Rangers taking EJ Emery. Again, I think any team would love taking EJ Emery. But after that, again, they didn't pick until the fourth round. Then they had their fifth or sixth round. Obviously, they were betting high on trading a lot of those picks to win now, go on a deep run, which they did. Just didn't quite work out. But aside from EJ Emery, Raul Boyard, good two-way player, but you're looking at a player with like middle six upside as well, especially in that later round. Um, Again, not a lot. It's hard to say when you have 4 picks as well, but I'm gonna also pick the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Hmm.
Um, didn't pick until the fourth round either. I know it's hard to do that, but I really did like the Hagen Burrows pick. He was one player that I was really liked in the second half, and I did his prospect profile on. But after that, it just seemed like they're just taking a chance with a lot of their picks as
Mhm.
well, which that's basically what it is in the later round. You don't know what's going to happen as a result, but we know how good that they can develop prospects, even if they just pan out and meet their low floor and not a high ceiling. The Tampa Bay Lightning know how to do that. But I know they got a lot of picks in the later rounds, but aside from Hagen Burrows, I just thought they could have done a little bit more.
Yeah, it's tough judging teams that don't have picks until the later rounds. But yeah, and you never know. Some of these guys will probably will pan out. The fact that the Lightning are able to do this every year, they got guys that come out of these later rounds and be good players. It's they're just good at it. So I mean,
Mhm.
maybe underwhelming looking at it right now, but maybe a few years down the road, we'll be like, oh, that was a good pick. That was a good
Yeah.
draft. So that'll probably happen. All right, favorite pick from the entire draft. Now, this is gonna be a hard one to pick because there's quite a few players that we probably like, but just based on fit, based on any whatever criteria you want to pick on being favorite, who's your favorite pick?
Ah, that is tough. You know what? I'm gonna say De La Torno to Boston. Again, a team that really only had very little picks. They had a first rounder, but they made it count because he definitely fits that mold of that Boston Bruins type player. He's definitely got the size advantage. He's tower. I think he clocked in at 6'6", 6'7", 210 pounds, and he's got a bullet of a shot. Moves very, very well for his size. And if he could learn to play with that Boston mentality, with that little bit of an edge, and he's a centerman up the middle too. Um, Hopefully he can package everything together, develop sooner than later, and then he can make a big jump to the Bruins. I don't know if that's likely, but I really do like that pick because he kind of fits that mold of of what they value in a prospect and what he possibly could
Hmm.
be. Um, that to me was my favorite pick overall. I probably could again, there's probably many others.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also going to say, Sam O'Reilly to the Edmonton Oilers. I think they
Yeah.
need a little bit more, not necessarily grit and sandpaper, but they need a little bit more of that forechecking mentality in their system. They really didn't have that. And he surprised a lot in that second half and even the playoff run, too. So I really thought that was a good pick for them, especially towards the late end of the first round. Again, there's a lot of buzz about his two-way play, his ability to be in the right spot at the right time. And when you're playing with Connor McDavid and or Leon Draisaitl in the future, I think that's all what you could do is be in the right place at the right time. We saw how that worked out with a lot of those players on that team, where if you're just doing what you need to do and you let them do a lot of the work, but you help them out and give them support, good things are going to happen. So I think
Hmm.
that's a good pick.
I like the O'Reilly pick to the Oilers. I mean, them getting back into the first round was a huge thing for them
Mm-hmm.
to be able to get a prospect and get a first rounder. And picking O'Reilly, who you said could potentially be put into the first round, and he was right at the end. So a good pick. I think he'll probably be really good for the Oilers. I like. There's a few I could probably pick too. I really liked the Justin Poirier one to
Yeah.
Carolina because I'm like that really fits what
It's
they
a total
usually do.
Carolina pick.
It's a
Yeah.
whole pick for them because they pick undersized guys all the time
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to pan out. Seth Jarvis being a big one. And you look at Justin Poirier, we talked about him being able to be a steal down wherever he was going to go. And Dayton said he was probably going to go in the later rounds. And it's funny how I messaged him right after. I said, of course, it's Carolina that picks him. And it's funny because he sent the same message to me almost around the same time. So yeah, good pick for the Hurricanes. I think that was my favorite overall because, of course, everyone knows I love the undersized guys
Mm-hmm.
getting a chance, and Carolina seems to be able to give that chance a lot of the time. So I really like that one. All right, before we move on to our steals, potential steals, that is, got to tell everyone about our Substack at the Hockey Writers, our prospects focused one that gives you all the best articles of prospect related stuff. Not as much now because the draft's over, but a lot of the writing teams are looking at their prospect pool, the different draft classes. So definitely take a look at the Prospect Substack. And also we got the premium tier that gives you all the best articles from all of our premium part of the Substack. So make sure you're checking that out. All right, let's talk about some steals. Peter, let's start with the first round. I mean, it's hard to kind of see steal, but where guys are picked, who would you find? Who are you going to find a steal potentially down the road here?
I mean, I think the easy one is Liam Greentree, 26 to LA.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us had him as a top 20 pick. For him to fall that far, I mean, we've talked about how Cole Eiserman, that's another one right there. Cole Eiserman to the New York Islanders. How the top goal scorer in the draft, if he falls to a playoff team, that's going to be a huge steal right there. There's one right there, and Liam
yeah,
Greentree. Again, the Windsor Spitfires weren't the best team, but he was the lone bright side. I mean, he had like upwards of 96 points, or I think he had 96 points. So, sorry, 90 points. That's the last season. So, I don't know what the issue may have been. If it is his foot speed and skating, again, he does a lot more to make up for that lack of skating in his game. So, I really thought that that could potentially be a steal right then and there. But I think those two are the ones that stand out the most.
mhm. I was definitely Green Tree. I mean, he's going to a playoff team, and again, and also Eiserman. I really thought he was going to be drafted a lot sooner, and we all know probably why he dropped. But going to the Islanders, that's a team that really needs a guy like that in their prospect pool. So I think Eiserman is definitely one too. All right, moving to the second round. Who's a potential steal from there?
Um, Again, I think the easy one would be Ryder Ritchie. I think there's a lot more potential or not necessarily potential, but a lot of the offensive skill set in his game that picked up towards the second half. I know he dealt with injuries, but I thought that was, they took advantage of a late fall of Riley Height last year, and I think they did the same thing right now with Ryder Ritchie, and I think he could definitely be that middle six player that can, definitely change the pace of play right like in an instant. And I think that in today's game, you have those deceptive kind of players, and he could be very much be one as well. Also, Leo Selena Wellenius at 53. I think maybe he should have just been a tad bit higher, but again, we talk about how great the San Jose draft class was. Getting another puck moving defender at that range, I think is going to go well. I think it was very smart for them to find the players that they did right there. So I thought those two were the ones that instantly stand out for me as potential steals in that round.
Yeah, and Teddy Stiga was also a big one. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about him being a first round pick at time there, and he really bumped his draft stock up. And going in the second round, still I think could potentially be a steal. He could have been a first round pick. Yeah, and there were a few that dropped into that second round from the first because of the guys being surprises going in the first round. That definitely could potentially be steals too. All right. We're not going to go each round. Just go from rounds 3 to 7 and look at some guys there. I mean, there's an obvious one. Aaron Kiviharu is probably the biggest steal there in fourth round. Could potentially be a top pairing defenseman down the road. So, Peter, anyone else that you're kind of looking at from the rest of the draft?
This is an easy one. Seattle Kraken taking Jakob Fibger at
Yeah.
202nd overall. I do not understand how you could let a well-rounded defender in his first season in the OHL coming over from Europe fall that much, because I know the Steelheads had some, they had their moments, they had their ups and downs. They didn't have the best playoff, but I thought Jakob Fibger was a very strong pillar on that back end, and he adapted very, very well from the beginning of the season till now. I mean, he was among some of the top rookie defenders in production. He had 43 points. I really thought that he could have easily have been a fourth rounder, maybe the latest a fifth. Again, I was probably a little bit higher up, but I had him ranked third. So I think if he went anywhere in that range, it would have been great value. But to see him drop as far as he did, that is not necessarily concerning, but it's just value for the Seattle Kraken, who needed some more steady, reliable kind of two-way defenders. He was definitely one of them, or has that upside to be a two-way player, very strong defensively, and even plays with a bit of an edge as well. So, yeah, he finished fifth in rookie scoring all last season. He was the lone defender in rookie scoring in that top five. So big upside there. There that is a mistake to let him drop 2, 3 rounds after where he should have been.
100%. One other guy I'll mention is Ryerson Leanders, a seventh
Yeah.
round pick. I mean, we were
Hmm.
talking about him being the first goaltender off the board
Yeah.
and one of the first, and he goes almost to the end, 219th overall to the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, the Sabres don't really need goaltending, but when you see a guy like that in the seventh round, well, take him. I mean, just who knows? I mean, he could end up being your starter down the road, which definitely has that potential. I'm not sure why he dropped so far. It's a really good goaltender. I don't know. So yeah, that was a definite big one for me. All right, quick fire. And these are all just some quick ones. You don't need to really say big explanations. Uh, so what prospect are you most excited to watch this coming season? From this draft class, obviously.
So it is from this
From
draft
this draft,
class.
yeah, yeah.
So even if they go back to junior, it's still
Yeah, someone you're just excited to watch overall.
I'm curious to see the steps that Luchenko is going to take. The Philadelphia Flyers, believe swapped picks to move down to take him. And again, I'm very high on his two-way game, the speed and pace that he plays at, the playmaking style. Took a big step this year on a Guelph Storm team that was kind of, average, 74 points, a big jump in production. I want to see what he could do next year. And I think he's going to have a big season or draft year +1 season. As a result of that, I think he's very determined, very driven. And I think he's definitely going to be a top prospect in the Flyers system from here on out.
Yeah, that was a really good pick by the Flyers. I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm excited to see. I mean, this is gonna be an obvious one. I'm just gonna say it though. Macklin Celebrini. I want to see what he's gonna do in his
Yeah.
first season in San Jose. I mean that's because he's definitely signed his entry level, so he will be playing there. And teaming up with Will Smith, that's gonna be a real
Hmm.
exciting. I mean, the Sharks could surprise. I mean, I don't think they're doing anything substantial, but just watching those two play a season in San Jose. It's going to be pretty good, I think. And then with their other Eklund, another year with him. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Celebrini can do. Obvious one, but you got to say it. All right. Now, speaking at this time next year, who will we be talking about as a standout? I mean, we'll be doing this. Who stood out? Who do you think will have the biggest standout year? Lots to
See,
choose from.
lots to choose from because a lot of these have like a lot of this is a lot of hypothetical. I think Liam Greentree is going to stand out. I think the fact that he had 90 points this season, I really think he's going to crack that century mark next season. And again, if he has like a little bit more, a little bit more to work with, and again, the fact that he was able to put up 90 points in a season where he was the lone bright side says a lot. So imagine if what he can do with a little bit more extra talent on at his disposal. I think he's gonna still, whether he has that talent or not, I still think he's gonna have a standout season. I think he's gonna take a big step forward with his progression. And, hopefully we can see a little bit more of that extra speed that everyone has been wanting to see.
Yeah, I think that's one. I mean, and also the Spitfires are going to be a lot better this year. I'm thinking
Hmm.
they will be. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, couple quick ones here. What pick from this draft class? I'm going to take Celebrini out of this conversation because of course, he's going to be in the NHL for a whole year. I would think they're not going to send him anywhere. Who could play a full season in the NHL other than Celebrini?
I mean, I think it goes right back to Artem Levshunov. Excuse me, I think he's the one player that, can make that jump relatively a little bit sooner rather than later. I mean, you don't want to thrust a top right-hand defenseman into the fold right away. The fact that he signed basically means I don't think he's going back to college. It's himself as well. So if he's going to the AHL as well, I think that may be a good spot for him and then maybe get called up. But if they want to give him that chance and opportunity to run with that spot and be that, factor on defense, so be it. A little bit concerning with his defensive game. I think he still need to work some things out, but he's probably the next best one to make the jump right away full time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Lev Shunov will be given the chance at the beginning of the season, but yeah, he can be sent down to the AHL and see what he can do there first. But we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. All right, a quick Calder Trophy contenders, other than the Celebrini, because he's going to be a big one. Who else is going to challenge him? I mean, it could be Will Smith on, on the same team as him. Who else are you kind of eyeing as an early contender for the Calder?
Cutter Gauthier and Logan Stankoven. I think that Gauthier has not necessarily a lot to prove, but the fact that he's in an environment now where he wants to be in, I think he's going to thrive as a result of that. And even Logan Stankoven, after what he did last season, during that last stretch and even into the postseason, he's going to be even more hungry. So I think those are two names that could challenge Macklin for the top rookie.
All right. Well, we'll see how that all goes. But thanks, Peter, for coming on and talking draft and all that. But make sure to check out everything else at thehuggers.com. Until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Prospect Corner.